Hi everyone, welcome back in today's video. So in this tutorial, we shall be discussing common mistakes to avoid whenever you are measuring a blood pressure. So in this video, we shall be talking about mistakes to avoid whenever you are taking a blood pressure, because this will give you a wrong reading whenever you take the blood pressure like that way. So the first mistake is, for example, the arm cuff, rubbing the arm cuff over the clothing. So what do I mean this? Let me show you. For example, when you are taking a blood pressure, you should avoid rubbing the arm cuff over the clothing. So this is my clothing, and you are taking the blood pressure over the clothing. So that is a mistake for you to avoid whenever you are measuring a blood pressure. So number one mistake is not rubbing the arm cuff over the clothing. So if you are taking your own blood pressure, you should pull back your clothing on top of the shoulder, or you should instruct the patient to pull his or her clothing on top of his or her shoulder whenever you are measuring a blood pressure. So that's number one mistakes to avoid whenever you are taking a blood pressure. Okay, the second mistake is the arm cuff or the arm is not at the heart level. So whenever you are taking a blood pressure for your own or maybe for another person, you should instruct the patient to put his arm in between the heart level. So it should be, the arm should be in between the heart level. It should not be up or it should not be down. So instruct the patient that the arm is in between the heart. You should measure the blood pressure like that. So that is number two mistake to avoid whenever you're taking a blood pressure. The arm should be in between the heart level. So that's number two mistake for you to avoid whenever you are taking a blood pressure. Okay, number three mistake is rubbing the arm cuff too tight. For example, I am taking my blood pressure. Assume I am taking my blood pressure. So when I am rubbing the arm cuff, I should not tight it too much. So that is a mistake for you to avoid whenever you're taking a blood pressure. So you should at least loosen the arm cuff so that you are able to put two fingers whenever you are taking the blood pressure. So the arm cuff should not be too tight whenever you are taking a blood pressure. That is number three mistake to avoid. So you should rub the arm cuff gently like this, but not too tight. So that one is a mistake, number three mistake to avoid. Okay, let us proceed. Okay, number four mistake to avoid is whenever you are taking a blood pressure, you should rest at least for 5 minutes. If you are taking your own blood pressure, you should rest at least 5 minutes before measuring your blood pressure. And if you are taking the blood pressure of a patient, you should instruct the patient to rest for 5 minutes before you start measuring the blood pressure. That is number four mistake for you to avoid whenever you are taking a blood pressure. Okay, number five mistake is with full bladder, taking blood pressure with full bladder. What do I mean this? For example, a patient comes in a clinic and you are about to measure the blood pressure. So instruct the patient to empty his bladder if he has an urgent urination. So you should not measure the blood pressure with a full bladder. That is someone having with an urgency of urination. So you should never measure a blood pressure with a full bladder if you have an urgent urination. Okay, number six mistake to avoid is having your legs crossed. So whenever you're taking a blood pressure, make sure your legs should be very straight. So your legs should not be crossed like that. Are we together? So make sure your legs are not crossed whenever you are measuring a blood pressure. That's another mistake for you to avoid. Okay, the other mistake we have is taking the wrong arm. For example, whenever you are measuring a blood pressure, so it's advisable to measure the blood pressure on the left side of the hand. So unless a cardiologist order to take it on the right side, so it is always recommended to take a blood pressure on the left side of the hand. So that is another mistake to avoid. So if you are taking the blood pressure on the right hand, that is a mistake. So you should avoid. You will get a wrong reading. Okay. The other mistake is talking. So whenever you are taking your own blood pressure, or maybe you are measuring someone's blood pressure, always instruct the patient. Or if you are taking your own blood pressure, you should quiet. the patient should not talk, or maybe you should quiet when you are taking your own blood pressure, or maybe if you are taking someone's blood pressure, the patient should be quiet, he should not be talking. That is another mistake to avoid. Okay, the last mistake we have is having a caffeine, or maybe having a coffee in your tea whenever you are measuring your blood pressure. So make sure whenever you want to measure your own blood pressure, or if you want to measure someone's blood pressure, for example a patient, you should instruct the patient to limit the intake of caffeine in his drink. So a caffeine will always take the blood pressure up, so that one will give you a false reading. So these are the common mistakes for you to avoid whenever you are measuring a blood pressure. So please, if this video is the right video you are watching, kindly give me thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, like and share, and give your comment to this video. So thanks for watching. Have a nice day.